Can you tell me your name and where you're from and how long you've been involved in activism?
My name is Bernard Sweeney and come from Sligo. I was born in Mayo, but lived in Sligo most of my life, and I suppose I regard 32 counties of Ireland as my home, and if possible an island without borders. I've been involved with activism for a very long time. First off, I'm a member of the Irish Traveller community. So traveller activism would be my first form of activism. And I got involved about over 15 years ago. Set up a group called Mayo Traveller Support Group. And then we got involved with Minka Whitten, Irish Traveller Movement, Paddy Point, and various other groups around the country. And yeah, that's why I got involved with activism.
And you ran for the elections, and how did that go? How did you find it as a traveller?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It was my first time running the elections. With a very small budget. I had about 50 posters. And yeah, it was pretty poor in terms of votes. But I suppose when you're one person canvassing, you come from the traveller community and you're new into politics. They're all things to take into consideration. But I wouldn't give up on politics. I think it's a fundamental core issue to just about everybody living on the island, because no matter what we do is political. I think the structures and the system of the political arena needs to be changed, and I'd like to be part of making that happen.
Okay. You're involved with United Against Racism. Can you tell me a bit about that?
I am. United Against Racism is exactly what it is. It's united against all forms of racism. For a very long time, people assumed racism was geared towards people with different skin complexions or different cultures or different nationalities. But in actual fact, it's not. Travellers have been victims of racism in this country for a very, very long time, both by the British Empire when the invasion was going on, or during the invasion or after, and also since the forming of this Irish state, 1922. Travellers have been victimised, demonised, criminised, and have been pretty much beaten from pillar to post. And it was to suppress, oppress a culture, an ethnicity, a tradition, a way of life that the Irish settled community would have seen different, as would have the British seen all the Irish culture as inferior and needed to be changed. But unfortunately, the once oppressed became the oppressors of travellers.
Okay. You were very heavily involved in getting ethnicity recognition. And while you seem to have been grateful for that, you asked in the Dáil for a formal apology. Why would you feel travellers would be deserving of a formal apology?
Alright, well, I suppose first we'll start with the ethnicity. It's one of those things when people say ethnicity, you think a different nationality again, different culture, a faraway land. Ethnicity, everybody has it, including settled people. I'll give you a couple of examples. Well, one, the settled community is a majority community, so it's kind of more or less in their subconscious than anything else. They don't practice it so much because it's not, feel it's not that it's not relevant, but it's such a dominant group anyway. They would see it in each other without even realising it. So if you take two Irish people and they went on a holiday and they met another couple Irish people, automatically they would communicate. They would talk about a history, traditions, culture, way of life back home. And that's when you become conscious that you have ethnicity. Travellers have it because our culture, although it is shared with Irish history, with the settled community, still there's many distinctions and differences within that. For example, our culture would be thousands of years old, I think up to 12 to 15,000 years old. We've maintained the biggest part of our culture right up to 2017. Settled communities' history, from what I can gather, is slightly different. It is more like 800 years old. And they would associate that a lot with the British ruling. So if you take example that their system is almost mirror reflection of the British system, the politics. And also you got many roads, streets, towns still named after British, named by the British and remain that way today.
And sorry for interrupting you there, but would you say then there's colonial cringe kind of syndrome going on then among non-travellers, or we say Irish people.
Yeah, of course. When you do take into account that Ireland was 800 years of, oppressed, and of course what they attacked at is the religion, politics, anything that's Irish, particularly the clan system as it was broken up by the British. So those in over 800 years, you can imagine, were conditioned. It's a bit like a Stockholm syndrome in a way. But the more the settled community became more like the British, where they accept that or like that, and I suppose it's more of a psychological thing rather than a physical thing, because they still do what things are pretty Irish, St Patrick's Parade and other various Irish events. But psychologically, I believe they are conditioned that way after 800 years, because they are suppressing a culture that was once theirs, a way of life that was once theirs. Now they can come up with smart ass remarks and they have evolved, so on and so forth, but evolved into what exactly? Because if you look at Britain, their language, those who speak it, those who speak a language think like the language, is one of the second biggest arms dealer in the world. They've invaded 3/4 of the planet. They've created genocides, murder right across the globe. Not saying that the Irish settled do that, but that's the mentality, and yeah, of course, it has affected settled people more than it has travellers.
Right. Getting back just to the apology request that you asked for in the Dáil.
Yeah, um, I honestly believe that the way that campaign was ran should not have been ran the way it was. For the simple reason was Paddy Point, Irish Travel Movement, and all the travel organisations led our community under the umbrella that this was going to bring about a statutory rights, additional rights to the very few we have in the first place. I wouldn't say additional to settled community rights, but because we're way behind, but additional to our rights for travellers. So with that campaign, they led it, and then they seemed to go through a bit of a rocky bump. Several meetings went on. Information wasn't very forthcoming from the organisation, so what exactly was going on, and we came out the other side of it with an acknowledgement, not a recognition, nothing written into law, no additional funding to travel organisations that are in so desperate need of it, especially after this austerity that was inflicted by Fine Gael and Labour, where travel organisations had 90% of their funding cut. One of the most suppressed, impoverished communities in Ireland had that amount of money cut from them. It was ridiculous. So when went along then with the campaign up to that point, the issue I had was it's an acknowledgement, as I mentioned. So that's a bit like bringing a person in with a disability and put them in the Dáil, and the government says we acknowledge you have a disability, but we're not going to build no ramps for you. We're not going to change the system or the structures or anything else for you, but we do acknowledge you have ethnicity or a disability. So that's exactly how I felt about it. Of course, on a personal level, of course, that's sense of pride and honour and all that kind of stuff. And the apology then was, for the simple matter of the fact, was that the Irish state is responsible for the deaths of thousands of men, women, and children in our community. And there's no escaping that. Even right to this day, men and women die much younger than our counterparts from the settled community. And that is not an act of God or anything like that. That's the lack of political structures that were never put in place to protect our people, our community, our culture. Yeah, sorry, I've been lost to.
Yeah, and what would your hopes be for the future? What would you like to see happen for travellers in terms of, aside from, coming up to the standard of normal human rights, but, in terms of their self-esteem or their image of themselves as a community in the society?
Yeah, well, first off, I think it was about 15 years ago, I think it was in the Matt Cooper show, and basically one of the issues come up about travel and conflict. People don't realise the history of oppressed conflict is slightly different from other forms of conflict. One is where the exact same statistics could be shown for the Irish general population in the 1850s, I think it was in Boston or New York, where there was very high volumes of conflict and violence. But the question was asked, is there conflict within the traveller community, and was there stealing and robbing and the usual stereotypes that pop up every so often? The truth is, of course there is. no less, no more than there is in the settled community. So of course, for us to move forward together, and the same way I'm sure the settled community would also like to move forward together, and hopefully we all move together eventually. What I would say to fellow Traveller in our community is understand the history of our conflict. And if you understand that, it will go some way and a long way in resolving conflict or even preventing it. I don't believe the travel organisations are doing enough in that area. Not because they're not trying, because I don't believe they have the know-how. Because most organisations are either settle-led or very influenced by settled people. Well, where I'd like to see our community going is taking a pride within themselves, and not the pride that we should be prouder than anyone else, but a pride to bring that pride back into effect, because it has been taken away from us for such a long time, made to feel ashamed and guilty and who we are, where we came from. So to restore that pride that we have fought very hard to get to this point.
So what you're saying is just balance the shame with pride. That's why the need to get to feel a sense of pride is it's something everybody should feel within themselves as individuals.
Yeah, I think it's a
Like, why would you be proud to be Irish? Someone once said.
Yeah, well,
Why would you be proud to be a traveller?
yeah, it's true. A bit like Black Lives Matter in the United States, and a lot of people criticise them because the first thing they would say is all lives matter. And as that is quite true, but unfortunately it's not stated in the facts and the evidence of what we see around the world. So basically, when we say pride for travellers, traveller pride, we're asking travellers to be proud of themselves. We're not asking anybody else to be proud of us. We're asking our own fellow travellers to be proud of who they are, where they came from. And with that, take back what's been taken from us. And that's where the pride goes. I suppose the other thing would be that end feuds, end conflicts, and I'm sure there's strategies we can come up with. I've come up with a few in the past. Unfortunately, for one reason or another, they have been taken on by the organisations. That's not enough criticism, because I have a million more criticisms rather than that one. But that particular one, I suppose, needles me also, because none of us are prone to, or travellers are more prone to conflict than I suppose most other communities. But the conditions that I could give and have given during this interview would suggest that you understand why there is certain elements of conflict. Yeah, I suppose the whole thing with the pride is just be proud. If you take the Traveller Pride Awards, which set up I think it was about 12 or 13 years ago, and I was the first person to come up with the idea. I'm sure that the idea popped up many times before, but I remember once suggesting the ITM management, and basically laughed at it and thought it was a crazy idea, that there's more important things to be doing. I left ITM management, or slight push maybe. But anyhow, a year later they done the Traveller Pride Awards, which is perfectly fine, and not looking for credit for it. The only two issues I had with it was, one, they had an overall Traveller Pride Award, which I don't believe they should have. For the simple reason is that everybody is equal, no matter what they do, no matter where they get their accomplishments or success, should take pride in the fact that they participated in any project or activity in the first place, and that should be enough to be classed as an equal, rather than feeling the need to come first. The other issue I had was, and I still have it, is that non-travellers were handing out awards for Traveller Pride. And the first thing you would think is that if we had enough pride in ourselves, why are we asking the settled community to present us with awards? It's just a contradiction of Traveller Pride. It should be travellers either won in the past, had other achievements, and travellers presenting a plaque or trophy or award to a fellow traveller. But both can take pride in the fact that it's come from one to the other, and not one from our oppressor.
And it would show travellers are proud of travellers.
Of course, yeah. Because you can take any community that's been suppressed long enough, internalized oppression develops. And what happens sometimes is that we end up copying and mimicking our oppressors, because we believe that the oppressor is the person with the power. So if we have power, well, then we don't have to feel powerless, and we don't have to feel suppressed. So we kind of bring that upon ourselves to a certain degree. And what happens then is that we have travellers who sort of take this out on each other. go against each other to either impress their oppressor or want them to be like their oppressor, because they feel that might make them good in some way. So of course we need to reverse that and have travellers present other travellers with awards and tell them it's okay to take pride in your fellow traveller, even if the settled community don't.
Yeah, thank you, Bernard Sweeney.